The bathroom floor was cold against Patricia Johnson's cheek. She'd been lying there for what felt like hours, though the clock on the wall, the one Robert had hung 30 years ago, slightly crooked, and she'd never bothered to straighten, told her it had only been 20 minutes. 20 minutes since her foot had slipped on the wet tile. 20 minutes since she'd heard the crack, felt the white-hot lightning shoot through her hip. 20 minutes since she'd called out for help that wasn't coming. The October morning sun slanted through the frosted window, casting geometric shadows across the pale blue tiles. Patricia had chosen this tile herself back in 1995, when they'd renovated after everything. Robert had wanted white. Clean, simple white. But Patricia had insisted on blue, the color of forget-me-nots, though she'd never told him why. Now, at 68, she wondered if Robert had known all along. The pain came in waves. Not just from her hip, though that was bad enough, a grinding ache that made her stomach turn, but from somewhere deeper. The kind of pain that's been waiting years to surface, hiding beneath the routines of grocery shopping and volunteer shifts at the library and Wednesday night bingo at St. Mary's. Her cell phone sat on the bathroom counter, just 4 feet away. It might as well have been 4 miles. Patricia had tried to reach it, dragging herself across the tile with her good leg, but the pain had been too much. She'd made it 6 inches before the room started spinning, before the nausea rose up so fast she thought she might pass out. So she'd stopped, caught her breath, and tried to think. Call David, she'd thought. He'll come. Would he? Her oldest son lived 20 minutes away in a nice subdivision off Taylor Road. She could picture his house, the one with the professional landscaping and the 3-car garage. She'd only been there twice this year, once for Easter, when Sarah had made that dry ham and David had spent the whole meal checking his phone. Once in July for Emma's birthday, where she'd sat in the corner while the other grandparents, Sarah's parents, had played games with the kids. But he was her son, her firstborn. He'd come. She'd called. He'd answered on the 3rd ring, his voice clipped and distracted. "Mom, I'm in a meeting." "David, Her voice had cracked. "I fell. I can't get up." There'd been a pause. Patricia had heard voices in the background, the rustle of papers. "Can you call 911? "I can't reach my phone. I'm on the bathroom floor." "Mom, I'm at the bank. This is really important. Can you call Barbara? I'll check on you later, okay?" Click. Patricia had stared at the phone in her hand for a long moment after he'd hung up. The screen had gone dark, reflecting her face back at her, pale, lined, shocked. He didn't come. Something inside her whispered, "Your son didn't come." So she'd called Barbara. Her daughter hadn't answered. The phone had rung and rung, then gone to voicemail. Patricia had tried again. Voicemail. A 3rd time. Nothing. Finally, a text had come through. "At court. Call you tonight." Not "are you okay?" Not "what's wrong?" Just 5 words and a period, like punctuation on their relationship for the past 2 years. Patricia had let the phone slip from her fingers then. It had clattered across the tile, coming to rest against the wall, still lit up with Barbara's message. The house was so quiet. She'd lived here for 42 years, raised 2 children in these rooms, buried a husband from this address, and now, lying on her own bathroom floor, she realized she couldn't remember the last time she'd felt truly at home. The pain in her hip sharpened, demanding attention. Patricia closed her eyes and tried to breathe through it. In through her nose, out through her mouth, like she'd learned in that yoga class at the community center. The one she'd gone to 3 times before she'd stopped, because the other women had all seemed to know each other, seemed to have lives that included lunch dates and book clubs and daughters who actually answered their phones. She must have drifted off, shock maybe, or just exhaustion, because the next thing she knew, there was a sound at the front door. "Patricia, you home?" Jennifer Martinez's voice, bright and warm as sunshine. Patricia tried to call out, but her throat was dry. She managed a hoarse croak. "Bathroom," the sound of footsteps, quick and light. Then Jennifer was there, kneeling beside her, her face creased with concern. Jennifer, at 55, looked younger than Patricia had at that age. Or maybe Patricia just felt ancient now, crumpled on the floor like a piece of discarded paper. "Oh my God, how long have you been here?" "An hour, maybe more?" Patricia's voice sounded strange to her own ears, weak and papery. "I called David. I called Barbara. She couldn't finish. Didn't need to. Jennifer's face said she understood. "I'm calling 911. Jennifer already had her phone out. And then I'm calling your children myself and giving them a piece of my mind." "Don't!" The word came out sharper than Patricia intended. "They're busy. They have their own lives." Jennifer's eyes met hers, dark and knowing. "Honey, nobody's too busy for this." But they were. Patricia knew they were. Because this wasn't the first time, was it? It wasn't the first time she'd called and gotten voicemail. Wasn't the first time she'd shown up at family dinners to find she was an afterthought, a duty to be checked off. Wasn't the first time she'd felt like a burden her own children were trying to avoid. The paramedics came, 2 young men who were gentle and efficient, asking questions about her pain level and her medical history. Jennifer rode with her to the hospital, holding her hand while Patricia tried not to think about the empty seats where her children should have been. At the hospital, as they wheeled her toward X-ray, Patricia caught a glimpse of her reflection in a window. An old woman, gray-haired and frightened, strapped to a gurney. When had she become that person? When had she stopped being someone's mother and become someone's burden instead? The X-ray tech was kind, a young woman with gentle hands and a soft voice. This might hurt a little, she'd warned, and Patricia had wanted to laugh. Because yes, it hurt, but not in the way the tech meant. The hip was broken. Cleanly, the doctor said, which was good, but she'd need surgery, and recovery time, and help. "Do you have family nearby?" the doctor asked, his pen poised over her chart. Patricia had opened her mouth to say yes. Yes, she had a son and a daughter, both in the same city, both healthy and capable and perfectly positioned to help. But instead what came out was, "I have a friend." Jennifer had squeezed her hand. That night after the surgery, after the pain medication had dulled everything to a manageable ache, Patricia lay in her hospital bed and watched the shadows on the ceiling. Jennifer had gone home to get Patricia some things, her toothbrush, her reading glasses, that mystery novel she'd been halfway through. She'd promised to come back in the morning, had refused Patricia's weak protests that she didn't need to. "You hush," Jennifer had said firmly. "What are friends for?" Friends. Patricia turned the word over in her mind. She'd known Jennifer for 5 years, ever since the other woman had moved into the neighborhood after her own divorce. They'd bonded over shared garden tips and borrowed sugar and gradually deeper things. But Patricia had never told Jennifer everything, had never told anyone everything. There were 3 people in the world who knew the whole truth: herself, Robert, and God. And Robert was 6 feet under, taking his share of the secrets with him. The morphine made Patricia's mind drift, memories rising up like bubbles in water. Michael. His name was a door she'd kept locked for 40 years. But lying here, alone in this sterile room, the lock seemed to give way. Michael David Johnson. Born March 15th, 1978. Died October 3rd, 1985. 7 years, 6 months, and 18 days of life. Her firstborn. The baby she'd held in her arms and known, with a mother's deep certainty that something was wrong. He'd been so perfect. 10 fingers, 10 toes, a shock of dark hair just like Robert's. But he hadn't nursed right. Hadn't gained weight like he should. And by 18 months, when other toddlers were running and climbing and chattering, Michael could barely sit up. The diagnosis had come on a Tuesday. PKU, phenylketonuria. A genetic disorder, the doctor had explained, that prevented the body from breaking down an amino acid called phenylalanine. Without treatment, it built up in the blood, poisoning the brain. "We can manage it," the doctor had said. Special formula, strict diet, regular monitoring. But it's expensive, and it's lifelong. Expensive. That had been an understatement. The formula alone had cost $400 a month in $1978, more than their rent. Robert had taken on extra shifts at the factory. Patricia had quit her job as a secretary to care for Michael full-time. They'd sold their new car and bought a 15-year-old station wagon. Moved from their 2-bedroom apartment to a 1-bedroom, Michael's medical equipment taking up half their living space. And still, it hadn't been enough. By the time David was born in 1982, they were drowning in medical debt. By the time Barbara came along in 1985, they were considering bankruptcy. Patricia remembered those years in fragments, the smell of Michael's special formula, sickeningly sweet. The sound of his seizures, a horrible rhythmic jerking, the weight of him in her arms as he got bigger but never stronger, 7 years old but developmentally still a toddler. She remembered 3-year-old David standing at the doorway of the living room, watching her rock Michael through another episode, asking, "Mama, can you read to me?" And she remembered saying, "Not now, baby. Mama's busy." Always busy, always with Michael. Because Michael was dying inch by inch and she'd known it. Known that every moment counted. That one day soon he'd be gone and she'd give anything, anything for one more minute. So she'd given David and Barbara to her mother. Let them stay at Grandma's house for days, sometimes weeks at a time. Told herself they were fine, they were young, they wouldn't remember. But they had remembered, hadn't they? When Michael died, October 3rd, 1985, at 2:37 a.m., in the pediatric ICU with Patricia holding his hand, something in her had died too. She'd fallen into a depression so deep, so dark, that some days she couldn't get out of bed. Couldn't eat. Couldn't face the 2 living children who needed her. David had been 3. Barbara had been 3 months old. By the time Patricia surfaced, 2 years later, David had learned not to need her. At 5 years old, he'd become Robert's shadow, following his father everywhere, turning away when Patricia reached for him. And Barbara had bonded with Patricia's mother, calling her Mama for the first year before they'd corrected her. Robert had wanted to tell them. As they got older, as the questions started, why don't we have any baby pictures? Why is there a gap in the photo albums? He'd said they needed to know about their brother. But Patricia couldn't. The wounds were too fresh, too raw. Every time she tried to form the words, her throat closed up. So they'd made a decision. They'd pack away everything related to Michael. The photos, the medical records, the sympathy cards. They'd move forward. Give David and Barbara a normal childhood, free from the shadow of their dead brother. It had seemed like mercy at the time. Now, 40 years later, Patricia wondered if it had been the worst mistake of her life, because her children had grown up thinking their mother was cold, distant, unaffectionate. They didn't know about the son she'd poured everything into, leaving nothing for them. They didn't know about the grief that had swallowed her whole. They didn't know that every time she looked at them, she saw Michael's ghost. How do you explain that to your children? How do you say, "I'm sorry I wasn't there for you, but I was drowning in grief for the brother you never knew existed"? You didn't. So Patricia hadn't. And now here she was, 68 years old with a broken hip and 2 children who couldn't be bothered to visit. The morphine pulled her under again, and this time her dreams were full of things she'd locked away. Michael's laugh, high and delighted. David's little face, confused and hurt. Barbara crying for her in the night, and Patricia unable to go to her, paralyzed by her own pain. I failed them, she thought as consciousness slipped away. I failed all of them. The next morning, Patricia woke to sunlight and the smell of hospital coffee, weak and bitter. Jennifer was already there, sitting in the chair by the window, quietly knitting something pink and soft. "You're here," Patricia croaked. Jennifer looked up, smiling. "Of course I am. I brought you some things." She gestured to a small duffel bag on the side table. "Your comfortable pajamas, your face cream, the one you like with the lavender, and that novel, plus some real coffee from that place you like downtown." Patricia felt tears prick her eyes. "You didn't have to. I know. I wanted to." Jennifer set down her knitting and came to sit on the edge of the bed. "The doctor says you can probably go home in a few days, but you'll need help for a while. I was thinking—" The door opened. Barbara stood in the doorway. Patricia's younger daughter looked exactly like she always did. perfectly put together in a charcoal gray suit, her dark hair pulled back in a sleek bun, her makeup flawless. She looked like success, like someone who had their life completely under control. She did not look like someone who'd let her mother lie on a bathroom floor for over an hour. "Mom," Barbara's voice was carefully neutral. "I got your message." "Yesterday's message," Jennifer said quietly, when she was on the bathroom floor. Barbara's jaw tightened. "I was in court. I can't just leave in the middle of—" "Your mother was injured." "And she's fine now, isn't she?" Barbara turned to Patricia, and for just a second there was something raw in her eyes. Something that looked almost like fear. "You're fine." Patricia wanted to say yes, wanted to smooth this over like she always did. But maybe it was the morphine, or the pain, or the fact that she'd spent the night dreaming about all the ways she'd failed. But what came out instead was, "No, I'm not fine." Barbara blinked, clearly not expecting that. "The surgery went well. The doctor said—" "I'm not talking about the surgery." Silence. Jennifer quietly excused herself, squeezing Patricia's hand before slipping out the door. Barbara stood there, her expensive leather briefcase clutched in both hands like a shield. "What are you talking about?" "You left me there, Barbara. On the floor. You saw me and you walked away." Barbara's face flushed. "I had court, a client depending on me, and I'm just your mother." "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" Patricia pushed herself up against the pillows, wincing at the pull in her hip. "When did we become like this? When did you start looking at me like I'm an obligation instead of your mother?" Barbara set her briefcase down with a sharp click. "You want to talk about obligations? About being there for people?" Her voice rose, years of something held back finally breaking free. "You weren't there for me, Mom. When my marriage fell apart, when I needed someone to tell me I wasn't crazy for leaving him, you took his side. You told me I should try harder. Be more patient. Make it work." Patricia felt the accusation like a physical blow. I was trying to help." "You weren't trying to help. You were trying to avoid dealing with messy emotions. Like always." Barbara's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Do you know what it's like to have a mother who never quite seems to be fully present? Who's always somewhere else, even when she's standing right in front of you?" "Yes," Patricia thought, "I do. Because that's what I did to you." But she couldn't say it. Couldn't unlock that door. Not yet. "I'm sorry," she whispered instead. "About your marriage. About not supporting you the way you needed." Barbara wiped at her eyes impatiently. "It doesn't matter now. It's been 2 years. I'm fine." "Are you?" For a moment, mother and daughter looked at each other across the hospital room, across all the years of hurt and distance and things left unsaid. Then Barbara picked up her briefcase. "I have to go. I'll check on you later." She was gone before Patricia could respond. Patricia sat in the empty room, listening to the beep of the monitor, the distant sound of the hospital PA system. Somewhere down the hall, someone was crying. The door opened again. For a wild moment, Patricia hoped it was Barbara coming back. But it was David this time, looking uncomfortable in his work clothes, khakis, and a polo shirt with his company logo. "Mom, hey!" He came to stand at the foot of the bed, not quite meeting her eyes. "I heard about— Sarah told me Barbara was here. I would have come yesterday, but like I said, I was at the bank and—" "What's wrong, David?" He looked up, startled. "What?" "Something's wrong, I can see it." Patricia studied her son's face, the lines around his eyes, the tension in his shoulders. "What is it?" For a second she thought he might tell her, saw the words forming, the need to confide in someone, anyone. But then his face closed off, became polite and distant again. "Nothing. Just work stuff. Business is— It's fine. Everything's fine." He was lying. Patricia knew her son well enough to know that. But she also knew that pushing wouldn't help. David had learned a long time ago to handle things on his own, to not need anyone. "I taught him that," she realized, when he was 3 and I was too consumed by grief to see him. "David, listen, Mom, I can't stay long. But I wanted to ask." He shifted his weight, still not quite looking at her. Dad's life insurance. The policy. Do you still have that? Patricia felt something cold settle in her stomach. Why? No reason. Just, making sure things are in order. You're getting older and... I'm 68, not 90. I know. I just mean... He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. Look, Sarah and I have been thinking. This house. It's a lot for you to manage. Maybe it's time to think about downsizing. We could help you find a nice place. Something easier. I don't want to downsize. I love my house. But it's so much work. And the maintenance. What you mean is the equity. The words came out flat. You want me to sell it? David's face flushed. That's not, isn't it? He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Mom, I'm trying to help. Are you? Or are you trying to help yourself? David stared at her for a long moment. Then, very quietly, he said, You know what? I don't need this. I came here out of obligation. At least you're honest about that. And you're twisting everything I say. Fine. You want to stay in that house alone? Go ahead. But don't call me when something happens and you need help. He walked out. Patricia sat very still, her hands folded in her lap. 2 children, 2 visits, 2 conversations that had ended in the worst way possible. When Jennifer came back half an hour later, she found Patricia crying, quiet tears that rolled down her face without sound. Oh, honey. Jennifer pulled a chair close and took Patricia's hand. I saw them leave. It didn't go well? No. Patricia's voice was thick. Jennifer, there's something I need to tell you. Something I've never told anyone. Jennifer settled into the chair, patient and present in a way Patricia's own children had never learned to be. I'm listening. And finally, Patricia opened the locked door. She told Jennifer about Michael, about the diagnosis, the years of struggling, the impossible choices, about the way grief had broken her, leaving her unable to be the mother David and Barbara needed, about the decision to hide the past, to pretend Michael had never existed. I thought I was protecting them, Patricia whispered, but I was just protecting myself. And now they don't even like me, and I can't blame them. I was never really there for them. Jennifer was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I understand more than you know. Patricia looked up, surprised by something in her friend's voice. I had a daughter, Jennifer said softly. Amanda. She died 15 years ago. She was 23. Oh, Jennifer. She had PKU too. That's how I knew your story even before you told me. I saw Robert's name in some old support group files at the hospital. When I moved here and realized you were that Patricia Johnson, I wanted to say something, but you seemed so closed off about the past. So I stayed close. Quietly. Patricia felt the weight of this revelation settle over her. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell David and Barbara about Michael? Jennifer smiled sadly. We all carry our grief differently. I'm not saying my way is right, but after I lost Amanda, I realized something. Hiding from pain doesn't make it go away. It just means you carry it alone. What do I do now? Patricia asked. How do I fix this? Jennifer squeezed her hand. Maybe you don't fix it. Maybe you just tell the truth, all of it, and let them decide what to do with it. Patricia thought about her children. David, angry and lying about his own problems. Barbara, cold and hurt and convinced her mother had never really loved her. They didn't know. They didn't know about the son who'd come before them, the brother whose death had shaped everything about their childhood. They thought their mother was simply cold, when really she'd been drowning. I need to change my will, Patricia said suddenly. Jennifer looked confused. What? But Patricia was already thinking it through. She'd made plans years ago. Standard stuff. Everything split equally between David and Barbara. But now she saw things differently. Her children didn't need her money. They needed the truth. They needed to understand. They needed to know about Michael. And maybe, just maybe, In the process of learning about their brother, they'd learn something about grace and sacrifice and what it means to be family. "I need to call my lawyer," Patricia said. "There's something I need to do." Patricia had been home for 3 days when David's silver SUV pulled into the driveway. Through the window, she watched him and Sarah get out, David carrying a casserole dish, Sarah clutching her purse like a shield. Jennifer had just left after helping Patricia with her morning routine. The walker stood beside the recliner, a reminder of how much her life had changed in a week. "Mom," David set the casserole on the coffee table, Sarah's dry chicken and rice that showed up at every family gathering. "How are you feeling?" "Better." Patricia studied her son. He looked exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes and a tension in his shoulders she recognized. "How are you?" "Fine. Everything's fine." The lie was automatic. Sarah perched on the edge of the sofa, her hands twisting in her lap. She'd lost weight, Patricia noticed. Her face was drawn, her eyes shadowed with something beyond fatigue. "We wanted to talk to you," David said, still standing by the window like he might bolt at any moment. "About your situation. This house is a lot for you to manage now. Sarah and I found a really nice assisted living place. You want me to sell the house?" Patricia's voice was flat. David's jaw tightened. "For your own good. What if you fall again? What if something happens and no one's here? Jennifer is helping me." "Jennifer is a neighbor, not family." The words hung in the air between them. Patricia felt something break inside her chest, not with a snap, but with a slow, inevitable cracking. "She's been more family than—" Patricia stopped herself, but too late. "Then what?" David's face flushed. "Then us? Is that what you were going to say?" "David, please." Sarah stood, placing a hand on his arm. "No, let's talk about it." David shook off his wife's hand. "Let's talk about how we're never good enough. How we're always somehow disappointing you. How—" "Stop!" Sarah's voice cracked. "Just stop and tell her the truth." David spun toward her. "Sarah, she deserves to know." Tears were streaming down Sarah's face now. "If you're asking her to sell her house, she deserves to know why." The silence was suffocating. "I'm sick," Sarah said finally, her voice breaking. "I have uterine fibroids. I need surgery. $40,000 after insurance. David's company lost its biggest contract. We're drowning in debt. And if I don't have this surgery soon—" She dissolved into sobs. Patricia felt the world tilt. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I'm 42 years old." David's voice was raw. "I'm supposed to have my life together. I'm not supposed to need my mother's help." "But you need my house." David's face crumpled. "I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. I thought I could fix it. I thought—" He sank onto the sofa beside his wife. "I don't know what else to do." Patricia looked at her son, this man who'd learned too young not to need anyone, not to ask for help, and she knew exactly who had taught him that. "David," she said quietly, "there's something you need to know, something I should have told you a long time ago. You had a brother. His name was Michael." The words fell like stones into deep water. David's head snapped up. "What?" "Michael David Johnson, born March 15th, 1978. He died October 3rd, 1985. He was 7 years old." "That's not—" David stood up, backing away. "That's impossible. There would have been pictures, records." "We hid them." Patricia's voice broke. "Your father and we packed everything away after he died. We thought it would be easier." The front door opened. Barbara stood there, taking in the scene, David pale and shaking, Sarah crying, Patricia with her hands folded in her lap. "What's going on?" Barbara's voice was sharp. "Sit down, Barbara. Both of you, please." Something in Patricia's tone made Barbara comply. She set her briefcase down and perched on the edge of a chair, every muscle tense. Patricia reached for the photo album Jennifer had brought down from the attic, the one she'd kept hidden for 37 years. She opened it to the first page. A baby with dark hair and darker eyes, wrapped in a blue blanket. Then a toddler, thin and fragile but smiling. A young boy in a wheelchair, laughing at something off camera. Michael had PKU, phenylketonuria, Patricia said, a genetic disorder. His body couldn't process certain proteins. Without treatment, they built up, causing seizures, developmental delays. She took a shaking breath. We did everything. Sold our car, our furniture. Your father worked 3 jobs. I quit mine to care for Michael full time. She looked at David. You were born 4 years after him. We were so careful. Had you tested immediately? You were healthy, but Michael still needed constant care. And her voice cracked. I failed you, David. You were 4 years old and you needed your mother, but I was so consumed with keeping Michael alive that I didn't see you. Didn't see that you were scared and needed attention. I remember, David whispered. I remember you always being with him. I was only 3 or 4, but I remember. I thought I'd done something wrong. No, never. Patricia reached for him, but he pulled back. You were perfect, but I was so afraid of losing Michael that I couldn't see past him. And when he died, when you were only 3 years old, I fell apart completely. I was depressed for 2 years. Your grandmother took care of you both while I couldn't function. Barbara was staring at the album, tears streaming down her face. We were babies. We needed you. I know, God, I know, and I've regretted it every day, but I didn't know how to tell you. Didn't know how to explain that your mother broke and couldn't put herself back together. Patricia wiped at her eyes. When you got divorced, Barbara, I told you to try harder because that's what I did. I tried harder with Michael. I sacrificed everything. I thought that was what love meant. I didn't understand that sometimes love means knowing when to let go. Barbara stood abruptly. So what, this is supposed to make it all okay? You had a son who died and it's tragic, I get it. But David and I were here. We were alive, and you chose to be absent. You chose to keep secrets. And now you're choosing David over me again? Selling the house to help him while I get nothing? Barbara, that's not— Don't! Barbara grabbed her briefcase. I'm done. I'm done with your excuses and your guilt and your— Her voice broke. I'm just done. She was gone before Patricia could respond, the door slamming with finality. David sat frozen, the album open in his lap. All this time, he said finally, all this time I thought there was something wrong with me. It was never you. Either of you. Patricia's voice was barely a whisper. I loved you so much it terrified me, and I was so broken I didn't know how to show it. David closed the album carefully. I need to go. I need to think. He helped Sarah up, and they left quietly, leaving Patricia alone with her choices and her regrets. Jennifer found Patricia crying in the darkened living room an hour later. I heard the cars, Jennifer said softly, sitting beside her. It didn't go well? No. Patricia's voice was hoarse. Barbara walked out. David can barely look at me. I thought telling them would help, but I think I just made everything worse. You told them the truth. That took courage. Did it? Or was it just selfish? Unburdening myself so I could feel better? Jennifer was quiet for a moment, her eyes on the photo album still sitting on the coffee table. I understand more than you know. Patricia looked up. What do you mean? I had a daughter. Jennifer's voice was steady but soft. Amanda. She died 15 years ago. She was 23. Patricia felt the world shift. Jennifer, why didn't I tell you? Jennifer smiled sadly. Same reason you didn't tell David and Barbara about Michael. Because sometimes grief is so overwhelming that talking about it feels like drowning all over again. What happened? She had PKU, like Michael. Jennifer stood, moving to the window. That's how I knew about your son. When I moved here 5 years ago, I joined a support group for parents who'd lost children to rare diseases. Someone mentioned the Johnson family, how they'd fought so hard in the 80s. When I moved to this neighborhood and met you, I recognized your name. You knew? All this time? I recognized the grief, Patricia. I understood why you never talked about the past. Because I couldn't talk about Amanda either. Jennifer turned back, tears on her face. She was diagnosed at 6 months. We did everything right, but there was a complication, a variant the doctors missed. She had a seizure during her last year of college. She never woke up. Oh, Jennifer. Patricia tried to stand, forgetting her hip, gasping at the pain. Jennifer rushed over, helping her settle back. My marriage didn't survive it. My husband blamed me. I blamed myself. Moving here, meeting you, it was like finding someone who understood without me having to explain. That's why you were there when I fell. I've always been there, Patricia, because I knew that one day you'd be ready to face the past. And when that day came, you'd need someone who understood. Patricia caught Jennifer's hand. Thank you for being here, for understanding, for being the daughter I needed when my own daughter couldn't be. And thank you for being the friend I needed when I'd lost everyone else. After Jennifer left, Patricia sat alone in the gathering darkness. She thought about David, desperate and proud and unable to ask for help. About Barbara, hurt and angry and convinced she'd never been loved enough. About Jennifer, carrying her own grief all these years while helping Patricia carry hers. And she thought about Michael, sweet Michael, who taught her that sometimes you gave everything and it still wasn't enough. That loss could break you so completely you forgot how to be whole. But maybe loss could also teach you something else. That family wasn't just blood. That love came in unexpected forms. That the people who showed up mattered more than the people who were supposed to. Patricia reached for her phone. Helen Porter Law Office. Helen, it's Patricia Johnson. I need to see you tomorrow. It's about my will. Is everything all right? No, Patricia said honestly, but it's going to be. That night, 2 conversations happened in 2 different houses. In David's kitchen, lights burned late. Sarah sat with her laptop open to medical bills and bank statements. David paced, arguing with creditors. When he hung up, Sarah said quietly, Your mom offered to help. By selling her house. David's voice was sharp. The house where she raised her kids, where she took care of a son I never knew existed. But we're desperate. I know. David sank into a chair. I don't know how to process any of this. A brother I never knew. A mother who was grieving instead of cold. All these years thinking I wasn't enough, and it turns out it wasn't about me at all. Does that make it better or worse? Both, David said. Both. Across town, Barbara sat in her condo with a glass of wine, staring at her phone. She thought about calling Thomas Reed, the estate attorney, asking about contesting a will, protecting her interests. Interests. Such a cold word for her mother's estate. She thought about the photo album, about Michael, the brother she'd never known, the son their mother had loved so much it broke her. Where does that leave me? Barbara wondered. The daughter who never had a chance to compete with a ghost? Her finger hovered over Thomas's number. Are you really going to do this? She asked herself. But what if Patricia cut her out? What if this revelation about Michael was leading to some grand gesture where she left everything to Jennifer, the woman who'd actually been there? Barbara pressed call. Thomas, it's Barbara. I need to ask you something about my mother's estate. Meanwhile, Patricia slept and dreamed of 3 children, Michael with his gap-toothed smile, David standing at her door asking if she was sad, Barbara crying in her crib while Patricia lay paralyzed in the next room. In her dream, she could reach them all, could hold them, could explain everything. But when she woke at dawn, they were gone, and she was alone with her choices. Jennifer arrived early with coffee and groceries. Ready for your meeting with Helen? Patricia looked at the photo album on the coffee table, at the garden outside her window, at the house full of memories, both painful and precious. Yes, she said. I'm ready. Helen Porter's office smelled of old books and lemon polish. Patricia sat across from the lawyer she'd known for 20 years, Jennifer beside her for support. You're sure about this? Helen asked, reviewing the documents. This is unconventional. I'm sure. Patricia's voice was steady despite her shaking hands. Helen read through the terms one more time. $100,000 to Jennifer Martinez to establish the Amanda and Michael Memorial Fund for families affected by PKU. The house at 428 Oak Street to be converted into Michael House, a temporary residence for families with children receiving treatment for rare diseases at Montgomery Regional Hospital. $50,000 to David Johnson. $50,000 to Barbara Johnson. Both subject to the following conditions. They might contest this, Helen warned. Let them try. Patricia signed her name with a flourish. This is irrevocable, correct? As irrevocable as I can make it. Helen witnessed the signature. But Patricia, your children, are you sure this is the way you want to tell them? Patricia thought about Michael, about all the conversations she'd never had, all the truths she'd hidden. I'm tired of silence, Helen. It's time for the truth. All of it, even if it hurts. 3 days later, Patricia asked Jennifer to invite David and Barbara to the house. Tell them it's important. Tell them I have something for them. David arrived first, wary and tired. Barbara came 20 minutes later, her briefcase in hand like armor. They sat on opposite sides of the living room, not looking at each other. Patricia, still in her recliner, held 2 envelopes. Before you say anything, before we argue or fight or walk away, I need you to read these, please. She held them out. David took his first, then Barbara reluctantly took hers. Read them now, Patricia said. Out loud, if you can. David opened his envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a letter in Patricia's careful handwriting and a smaller sealed envelope labeled for Michael. He began to read aloud. Dear David, you were 4 years old when you asked me if I was sad. I said yes, but I never told you why. You were only 3 when Michael died. So young, yet old enough to sense something was terribly wrong. After he was gone, I couldn't look at you without seeing what I'd lost, so I stopped looking. That was my failure, not yours. You were never the problem. You were perfect, healthy and bright, and everything I could have wanted. But I was so broken I couldn't see it. I've changed my will, not to punish you, but to give you something I never gave you as a child. The truth about your brother, and a chance to honor his memory. You'll receive $50,000, enough to help Sarah get the surgery she needs. But there are conditions. 1. You must attend 6 months of family counseling with Barbara and me. 2. You must volunteer 40 hours at Michael House, the home that will be created from this house. 3. You must learn about PKU and meet families affected by it. 4. You must write a letter to Michael, the brother you never really knew. These aren't punishments. They're gifts. The gift of understanding. The gift of family. The gift of knowing that even when we fail each other, we can still choose to show up. You asked me once if I was sad. I'm still sad, David. But I'm also grateful. Grateful for Michael's 7 years. Grateful for your 42 years. Grateful for the chance to finally tell you the truth. I love you. I always have. I just forgot how to show it. Mom. David's voice broke on the last words. He clutched the letter, tears streaming down his face. Barbara opened her envelope with trembling fingers. Her letter was similar but different. Dear Barbara, you were 3 months old when Michael died. You never knew him, never had a chance to compete with his memory. But you've been competing with it your whole life anyway. When you got divorced, I told you to try harder because I was still trying to justify my own sacrifices for Michael. I was wrong. Sometimes love means knowing when to let go, and I never learned that lesson. I taught you to sacrifice yourself instead of honoring your own needs. That was my failure, not yours. You'll receive $50,000 with the same conditions as David. Not because you need the money, but because you need to understand where you came from. Why your mother was the way she was. Why she failed you. I can't change the past. But I can give you the truth and a chance to heal from it. You deserve to know your brother. You deserve to know that you were loved, even when I couldn't show it. You deserve better than I gave you. I hope these conditions, the counseling, the volunteering, the letter to Michael, will help you understand. Not forgive necessarily, but understand. I love you, Barbara. I'm sorry I never showed you how much. Mom. Barbara set down the letter, her face wet with tears. You changed your will. Yes. And the house? Will become Michael House. A place for families like ours was, like Jennifer's was. A place where they can stay while their children get treatment, without worrying about hotel costs or being far from the hospital. Patricia's voice was firm. Jennifer will manage it. The memorial fund will help sustain it. David looked up. You're giving Jennifer $100,000? She's earned it. She was here when you weren't. She understood when you couldn't. She showed up. The words landed like blows. Barbara flinched. David's face flushed with shame. But the conditions, David said, the counseling, the volunteering, are yours to accept or reject. If you don't want the money, that's fine. It'll go to the memorial fund instead. But I hope, Patricia's voice cracked, I hope you'll do it anyway. Not for the money. For Michael. For yourselves. For us. Silence filled the room. Outside, the October wind rustled the last leaves on the oak tree. Finally, Barbara spoke. What if we contest it? What if we argue you weren't in your right mind when you made these changes? Patricia met her daughter's eyes. Then you'll lose. Helen made sure of that, and you'll spend years fighting me instead of understanding me. Is that what you want? Barbara looked away. I don't know what I want. Yes, you do. Patricia's voice was gentle but firm. You want me to see you, to acknowledge that you exist, that you matter. And I'm telling you now, you do. You always did. I just didn't know how to show it. David set down his letter. I don't want your money, Mom. Patricia's heart sank. David, I don't want your money, he continued, but I want to do the conditions anyway. I want to know about Michael. I want to understand why. His voice broke. Why you were the way you were. Why I spent my whole life feeling like I wasn't enough. You were always enough. I know that now, but I need to feel it. I need to... He gestured helplessly. I need to heal, Mom, and maybe this is how. Barbara stood abruptly. You're going to do it? Just like that? Accept her conditions and pretend everything's fine? I'm not pretending anything's fine. David stood too, facing his sister. Nothing about this is fine. Our mother kept a massive secret from us. We had a brother we never knew. We grew up feeling unloved because she was too grief-stricken to show us love. None of that is fine. Then why? Because I'm tired, Barbara. David's voice was raw. I'm tired of being angry, tired of being hurt, tired of carrying around this weight of feeling like I'm never good enough. And maybe, just maybe, if I understand where it came from, I can finally put it down. Barbara stared at her brother, then at Patricia. You think 6 months of counseling and some volunteer work is going to fix 40 years of damage? No, Patricia said quietly, but it's a start. Barbara sank back into her chair. She picked up the smaller envelope, the one addressed for Michael. What is this? Part of the condition. You have to write him a letter. Tell him about yourselves, about your lives, about... Patricia's voice broke. About the family he would have been part of if he'd lived. How can I write to someone I never knew? The same way I've been writing to him for 37 years. Patricia reached into the drawer beside her chair and pulled out a worn journal. Every year on his birthday, on the anniversary of his death, on Christmas, I will write to him. Tell him about you and David, about the grandchildren he would have loved, about how much I miss him. She held out the journal. Barbara took it slowly, opening to a random page. October 3rd, 2015. Dear Michael, you would have been 37 today. David is 33 now, has 2 beautiful children. Barbara just made partner at her law firm. You would have been so proud of them. I wonder what you would have become. A teacher, maybe? You loved stories, loved learning. Or maybe a doctor, helping other children like you. I miss you every day, but I'm grateful for the 7 years we had. You taught me what love looks like, the kind that gives everything and asks nothing back. I'm sorry I couldn't save you. I'm sorry your siblings never got to know you. I'm sorry for so many things, but I'm not sorry you existed. You were the best thing I ever did. Love, Mom. Barbara closed the journal, tears streaming down her face. All these years you've been talking to him? Every year. And we never knew. Barbara's voice was barely a whisper. We never knew you were capable of this kind of love. I was capable. I couldn't show it to you. Because every time I looked at you, I saw what I'd lost. And it hurt too much. David crossed the room and knelt beside Patricia's chair. I'll do it. The counseling, the volunteering, the letter, all of it. Even if there was no money? Patricia asked. Even then? Barbara stood, still clutching the journal. She looked at her mother, really looked at her, perhaps for the first time in years. I'll do it too, she said finally. But not because of the money, not even because you're asking. I'll do it because, her voice cracked, because I need to know my brother. I need to understand where I came from. I need to know that I was loved, even if it didn't feel like it. Patricia reached for both her children, and for the first time in decades, they came to her. All three of them crying, all three of them broken, all three of them finally ready to heal. Jennifer, who had been waiting quietly in the kitchen, appeared in the doorway. I'll give you some privacy, she started to say. No, Patricia held out a hand to her. Stay, your family too. Jennifer joined them, and the four of them stood together in the living room where so much pain had lived, finally beginning the work of turning it into something else. The sign outside read, Michael House in cheerful blue letters. Below it, a haven for families facing rare diseases, in memory of Michael David Johnson, 1978 to 1985, and Amanda Marie Martinez, 1982-2007. Inside, the house had been transformed. Patricia's bedroom was now an office where Jennifer managed applications and coordinated with the hospital. The living room had become a common area with comfortable furniture and a play corner for children. Upstairs, 3 bedrooms housed families whose children were undergoing treatment at Montgomery Regional. Today was October 3rd, Michael's birthday. He would have been 47. Patricia, walking with a cane now instead of a walker, watched as her family gathered in the garden. David and Sarah, who'd gotten through the surgery successfully and were slowly paying back the loan. Emma and Lucas, David's children, playing with a little girl whose family was staying in one of the rooms upstairs. Barbara, who'd cut back her hours at the law firm to provide free legal advice to families navigating medical debt. And Jennifer, who'd found purpose in running Michael House, in helping other families the way she wished someone had helped hers. On the garden table, they'd set up a small celebration, a cake with 47 candles, photos of Michael at every age, no longer hidden but displayed proudly, and beside them, letters. Who wants to read theirs first? Patricia asked. David stepped forward, holding a piece of notebook paper covered in his handwriting. I'll go. He cleared his throat and began. Dear Michael, I'm your brother David. I was only 3 when you died, so my memories of you are hazy. I'm not sure which ones are real and which ones I've created from photos and Mom's stories. I remember you laughing. That's the clearest memory. You had this laugh that made everyone smile, even when things were hard. I spent most of my life thinking Mom didn't love me. Now I understand she loved you so much she didn't have room for anything else. I'm not saying that's okay, but I understand it. I have 2 kids now, Emma and Lucas. I'm teaching them about you, about their uncle who loved stories and made people laugh, about how sometimes loving someone means sacrificing everything, even when it's not enough. I wish I'd known you better. I wish you'd lived to meet my kids. I wish for a lot of things, but mostly I'm grateful you existed. Because loving you taught Mom what love looks like. And even though she forgot how to show it to me, she's teaching me now, by showing me you, your brother, David. Emma and Lucas clapped. Barbara stepped forward next, her voice steady. Dear Michael, I never met you. I was 3 months old when you died. But I've been living in your shadow my whole life. For years I was angry about that. Angry that a brother I never knew shaped my entire childhood. But now I understand that grief doesn't work on a timeline. It doesn't care about what's fair or reasonable. It just is. Mom's been teaching me about you, about how you loved music, how you'd get excited about birds and clouds and the smallest things. Jennifer says Amanda was like that too, finding joy even in pain. I'm trying to learn that, to find joy instead of just carrying anger. This house, Michael House, is helping. Every family that stays here, every child who gets treatment without their parents having to worry about where they'll sleep, that's your legacy. You're still here, still helping people, 37 years after you left. I wish I'd known you, but I'm getting to know you now, through the people you've touched, through Mom's stories, through this house that bears your name. Thank you for teaching our mother how to love, even if she forgot for a while. She's remembering now. Your sister, Barbara. Patricia wiped her eyes. Thank you, both of you. Jennifer lit the candles on the cake. Make a wish for him. Together they sang Happy Birthday. Together they blew out the candles. And together they stood in the garden of Michael House. 4 people who'd found each other through grief and were learning slowly what it meant to be a family. That evening, after the families had gone inside and the children were in bed, Patricia sat on the porch with Jennifer. The October air was cool, but not cold, carrying the scent of the last roses. He would have loved this, Patricia said, gesturing to the house. All of it. The families, the children, the laughter. So would Amanda. Jennifer took Patricia's hand. We did good, didn't we? We did, Patricia squeezed back. Not perfectly, but good enough. Through the window, they could see David and Barbara inside, laughing about something. Actually laughing, together for the first time Patricia could remember how long. The counseling had been hard. 6 months of sessions where they'd all said things that hurt, cried over things that couldn't be changed, slowly learned to understand each other. It wasn't fixed. Maybe it would never be fully fixed. But it was better, and better was enough. You know what I learned? Patricia said. Family isn't about blood. It's not about who's related to you or who's supposed to love you. It's about who shows up, who stays, who does the hard work of loving you even when you're difficult to love. Jennifer smiled. That's what Amanda used to say. Family is who you choose, Mom, not who you're born to. Smart girl. She was. They sat in comfortable silence. 2 mothers who'd lost children, 2 women who'd found each other, 2 friends who'd built something beautiful out of grief. Inside Michael House, a child laughed. Someone started playing music. Life continued, messy and complicated and beautiful. Do you think they forgive me? Patricia asked quietly. David and Barbara? I think they're learning to, just like you're learning to forgive yourself. Jennifer stood, offering Patricia her hand. Come on, let's go inside. Your family is waiting. Your family? Not your children. Your family. Patricia took Jennifer's hand and let herself be pulled to her feet. Together they walked into the house, into the warmth and light and noise of a family that had been broken and was slowly, painfully, beautifully putting itself back together. Not because of blood, not because of obligation, but because they'd chosen to show up, to do the hard work, to love each other, even when it hurts. And in the end, that was what family really meant.